So today we are concluding the first part of Raj Yoga, that is Swami Vivekananda's first part, where we have come to the chapter 8, where he gives Raj Yoga in brief. No doubt it's a repetition of whatever he discussed earlier, but it is from the Kurma Purana. Kurma Purana is a very authentic text. So Swamiji says he is giving a summary of Raj Yoga, freely translated from the Kurma Purana. So it is a sort of appendix, or you may say it is a kind of repetition of what he discussed in Raj Yoga till now. So it's worthwhile, and also its authenticity is important because it comes from the Kurma Purana. Though it is based on Patanjali's yoga, it is taken from the Kurma Purana, and Swamiji has taken the liberty of translating it, giving a free translation of this text, the text from the Kurma Purana. So we will begin now. The first verse is, I'll not read out the Sanskrit, though the Sanskrit is there. I'm not reading out the Sanskrit because it is not relevant here. Swamiji has in fact given only the translation. So I'll just read So I'll just read the translation. The first verse from the Kurma Purana, which talks about Raj Yoga, is, the fire of yoga burns the cage of sin that is around a man. So here sin is compared, or sin or ignorance, whatever actions, whatever karma we perform, and which result in so-called sin in the modern parlance, especially in Christian theology, we call it sin. But in Vedanta, we call it as error. Error because of wrong perception, or error because of a wrong understanding of the reality around us. So whenever there is ignorance, Vedanta says there is an error. We make an error in judgment and behave in a way which is called, in other theologies, it is known as sin. So sin is nothing but an error in judgment as a result of ignorance, as a result of seeing the subtle as gross, or giving more importance to the gross, thinking it is real, thinking of the vanishing reality that is gross. The grosser the thing, the more temporary it is. This is a fundamental tenet of Vedanta or yoga or any other Indian philosophy. They found that the mystery of the universe lies in the subtle. The finer we go, the better we are. So even human being, we go from the outermost Annamaya Kosha to the innermost Anandamaya Kosha, passing through Manomaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and as we become subtler and subtler, finer and finer, our perceptions become sharper and sharper. We come nearer and nearer to our real nature, and the ignorance goes away systematically. That is the idea behind all yoga. So the idea of yoga is we get enmeshed in Prakriti and gross Prakriti, Prakriti as we see it, and the more we are able to disassociate ourselves with this gross Prakriti and identify ourselves with our self or the Supreme Self or the Godhood which is within us, the less troublesome we will find this world. Otherwise, there is no end to our problems in the gross world. We have observed this. We try to solve one problem in the gross world, another problem props up. So that cannot be a solution. And wise people have to, those who practice yoga, they know it for certain that no amount of manipulation in the gross. We may wish that things will become happy ever after. That is the ideal dream of everybody, that now maybe we are struggling, but a day will come when everything will be fine and there will be no problem and all those things. But that situation is just a imaginary situation. It never happens in the world. The world by its very nature is full of ignorance, and the grosser you are, the more ignorant you are. That's a very simple idea of yoga or Vedanta. Now here Swamiji says the fire of yoga, what is the purpose of practicing yoga? When you perform yoga is the Kurma Purana says, Swamiji has just translated it, the fire of yoga burns the cage of sin that is around us. Now we are suffering because of the cage. We are imprisoned in our own sins. We don't have to think that somebody else is inflicting sins upon us or maybe trouble upon us. Our trouble, we are responsible for our own trouble because of our ignorance, and we have created it, and we cry that God is not partial to us. He is giving us trouble whereas others are enjoying. But the very nature of the gross world is that you will have pleasure at one time, pain at one time. Sometimes the proportion of pain is more because the sins are more. So it's a very simple logic. And the only way to burn these sins is through the fire of yoga. So what is this fire of yoga? The fire of yoga is the practice which has been enjoined upon us by our Guru. Whatever yoga it may be, it's all never as individual yoga. It's always a combination of four yogas. As Swamiji pointed out, no yoga can be practiced in isolation. You may think we are practicing karma yoga or we are practicing Raj Yoga, but that is not true. When you are performing Raj Yoga, you are doing some karma, you are doing some activity. So it's karma yoga. When you meditate, you are doing Raj Yoga. When you are doing some kind of devotional singing, prayers and all those things, it is Bhakti Yoga. And when you are thinking of the logic or the reason behind all these practices, when you use your discrimination between trying to discriminate between the eternal and the non-eternal, between the temporary and the permanent, when we try to distinguish, we are actually practicing Jnana Yoga. So all these four yogas we are following all the time. Maybe the proportion of one yoga is more at a particular time when we are meditating. For example, you may say we are predominantly practicing Raj Yoga. But at the same time, we are doing some karma yoga. We are breathing, we are doing all the other physical activities along with that. even though we are sitting still. But predominantly it is Raj Yoga with a little of Karma Yoga, and if you have worshipping the God within, the Ishta within, a personal God within, then it is an element of bhakti is also there. We meditate on the infinite reality which has come in the form of Sri Ramakrishna or our Ishta, and who sitting within our heart removes our ignorance. By removing of ignorance is what is meant here, burning the cage of sin that is around a man. So, when fire of yoga, when the first verse of Kurma Purana says, according to Swamiji, the fire of yoga burns the cage of sin that is around a man. Unless that cage of sin or the ignorance or the grossness that is surrounding us, trying to think that the gross is real. If we really think that the subtle is real or the causal is real, or maybe the spirit is real, then all our problems are solved forever. That is why so much emphasis is given on japa and meditation. So through meditation, we meditate on the thing which is more permanent than our existence, than our gross existence. And when the gross existence, which is by its very nature temporary, when it gives us trouble, we can withdraw ourselves and be at peace by becoming one with our spirit. That is the idea. So, the cage of sin has to be burned. If it is not burned, then we'll take it to be real and then think the cage is all in all. And we will find that we are imprisoned, we are suffering, we are doing this, we are doing that, and then all the troubles associated with the cage, with the broken cage, will make us miserable. So that cage has to be burnt, mentally it has to be burnt. Knowledge becomes purified and nirvana is directly obtained. Then the second verse says, knowledge becomes purified. Now we have knowledge, not that we don't have knowledge. We have knowledge of physical skills, we have knowledge of cunningness, we have jealousy, we have knowledge of various kinds. We think we are having a lot of knowledge, we are very wise, we can outdo others, we can cheat others, we can trouble others. So that is also knowledge, but it is a lower knowledge. But that knowledge has to be purified. The real knowledge says that don't waste your time after these temporary things. No doubt, no amount of intelligence will help you to make these temporary things eternal. However much you try, you can't make or rely on your wealth, you can't rely on your health, you can't rely on all the wonderful things you might have accumulated around yourself. It takes a fraction of a second for everything to vanish when death comes. So when we give so much importance, when we place a premium upon things which are temporary, the knowledge is not purified. But when the knowledge is purified, you give less importance. No doubt you have to give some importance because we are living in this cage of the world. We have to burn it slowly. Through yoga, as it burns away, then we are freed from that cage. Till then the cage is going to remain. It's not going to burn all of a sudden. So, slowly the knowledge, the fire of knowledge burns and it becomes purified, and nirvana or freedom is directly obtained. Now, where does this knowledge come from? The next verse, third verse of Kurma Purana says, from yoga comes knowledge. Knowledge again helps the yogi. So it is this knowledge which, it's not the spiritual practice that helps. It's the knowledge that is gained as a result of yoga that purifies and burns the cage of sin surrounding a person. Then he who combines in himself both yoga and knowledge, with him the Lord is pleased. I mean, knowledge does not, what this verse says is that as you practice yoga, the more knowledge you get, the more the ignorance is burnt away, the darkness of ignorance goes, and you find more and more enlightened. And both yoga and knowledge, when you combine, nobody can claim to have full knowledge at a stroke, at one stroke. He has to do yoga, and over a long period of time, when he does yoga persistently, he gains in knowledge. So the more knowledge he has, the lesser of yoga he has to do. Till then he has to do yoga. So one who combines in himself both yoga and knowledge, With him the Lord is pleased. Lord means the Antaryami, the Lord who is residing within us. Now that Lord is inspiring us to do yoga. That Lord is telling us that I am your real nature. You meditate on me, focus on me. All your other attempts, however noble they may be, they are worthless. They ultimately will give you temporary benefits, temporary punya, but the cage of sin is not going to be burnt. A man who is happy or a man who is suffering inside a cage is always imprisoned. A prisoner is, whether he is happy or unhappy, he is inside a prison. He cannot get rid of the prison. If you have to get rid of the prison of this cage of sin, as it is called in Kurma Purana, then there is no other way but to burn this by the yoga of knowledge. By yoga, when you burn it, when you burn this cage of sin which is surrounding us, the grossness that is surrounding us, the tendency of the human mind to consider the temporary to be permanent, the gross to be fine and subtle. We think the gross will give us everything, that money, that all the wealth and the property and everything will give us eternal life. That is the mistake we make. That is the grossness. We are placing a great premium, as I said, on the a great value or a great premium on the gross things which are not permanent, and that is the goal of yoga. So, one who combines in himself both yoga and knowledge, with him the Lord is pleased. Now after defining what this Mahayoga, what this yoga is, the Kurma Purana defines what Mahayoga is. The yoga which we do is a yoga which is a preliminary type of yoga, the asana, the pranayama and all those things. Those that practice Mahayoga either once a day or twice a day or thrice a day or always know them to be gods. I mean, for some reason we may not be able to practice yoga all the time, but at least once a day are we practicing yoga twice a day, or thrice a day or always, whatever be the capacities, they are on their way to become gods. Gods got their power by the power of yoga. What are gods? Deva, the word Deva is the shining one. The meaning of Deva in sense, the, the meaning of the word Deva is the shining one. What do you mean by the shining one? Where the darkness of ignorance, the fire of sin, the fire of knowledge has burned the cage of sin. That is known as that person is known as a Deva, one who is a shining one. So those people are gods who use the fire of yoga to burn the impurities surrounding them, the cage of sin, as it is said. Now, Swamiji says in the next verse, translates it in the next verse, yoga is divided into two parts. This yoga, which Patanjali has described in Kurma Purana, they say this yoga has two parts. One is called Abhava and the other is called Mahayoga. Now these words are very technical and important. Where oneself is meditated upon as zero and bereft of quality, that is called Abhava. Now this is a type of meditation which resembles that of Buddhism. When Buddhists came, they were also known as nihilists, some sects of Buddhism, who believed that when you meditate, and Shunyavada also it is known as Shunyavada. So here Kurma Purana refers to that, because this Purana was definitely written after Buddhism. After Buddhism was very popular, after Buddha, this Purana is much later than that. Even Patanjali, they say, is after Buddhism. So they say that maybe he got some of the ideas from the Buddhist teachings. But whatever it is, we will not go into the historical aspect of it. Whenever the self is meditated upon as zero, as shunya, then which is bereft of any quality, there is no quality. That is called abhava. That is one type of yoga where you don't meditate on any quality at all. You don't need it. It is something like Advaita, where of course in Vedanta we don't meditate. We start our meditation by saying that God is Sat Chit and Ananda. Though it is beyond the mind, beyond the gross body, though it has some quality or it has, we begin with certain qualities, pure existence, pure knowledge, or pure consciousness and pure bliss. Whereas even the Buddhists were those who meditate upon reality as zero and who aspire for nirvana. They say, why do you say it is bliss? What it is we'll know it, but we don't have to just meditate on it. It is bereft of any quality. That's why it is that yoga is known as abhava. Bhava means to be manifest. That is what we see. Bhava word has come from bhava. So abhava means what is not born, what is not manifest. The problem is that when the Prakriti manifests itself, the Parama Prakriti becomes the gross Prakriti, all the trouble starts. So according to one school of yoga or some schools like Buddhists, this meditating upon zero, the Purusha is not born at all. So when there is no birth, there is no death, and that is nirvana. So that is one kind of abhava, that in which one sees the self as full of bliss, ananda, and bereft of all impurities, and one with God. It is called Mahayoga. Now this abhava and Mahayoga are two ways of yoga, two parts or two sections of yoga, or two ways of yoga. In one you meditate on God as full of bliss, sitting deep inside the heart, the core of your personality, and when you meditate deeply, you become one with it, then it is called as Mahayoga. The yogi by each one realizes his self. So whether he meditates, uses Mahayoga, or whether he uses Abhava, ultimately he will realize the self. And the self is nothing but one with the Ishta on whom he is meditating. That is the idea. That is what Advaita also says. Whenever you meditate on him as Satchidananda, as a personal God, as an impersonal reality, finally the result is the same. You reach the same goal. The yogi by each one realizes his own self, his self. Self means the Supreme Self. The other yogas that we read and hear of do not deserve to be ranked with the excellent Mahayoga, in which the yogi finds himself and the whole universe finds himself and the whole universe as God. Now this is what Swamiji spoke about, seeing God in everything. The famous lectures he delivered in Piccadilly in London, where he spoke of God in everything, practical Vedanta, and some lectures on Jnana Yoga. This is what he mentioned. He says in this Mahayoga, as the meditator, the one who meditates, or the yogi, when he goes on meditating on God as bliss, he finds that the God on whom he was meditating, he is a part of that, and the whole universe is also part of that. There is nothing else which exists other than God. God alone exists, and this whole universe that we see is nothing but pure consciousness. That is the realization he gets. And the yogi finds himself and the whole universe as God. So, when he reaches this state of Mahayoga, the goal of Mahayoga, there is no second person involved. He becomes one with the Ishta, and his Ishta, or the God on whom he meditates, Satchidananda, is the all-pervasive reality, and he becomes one with that. So in yogi finds himself and the whole universe as God. In the beginning there is this distinction. There is this himself, me, and there is the world. I am interacting with the world. But when we go within, when we go in the reverse direction, when we try to focus our attention within and not without, as Kathopanishad so rightly points out, the problem is that we seek God without, outside. But God really is within, and when we seek Him within, we see Him as the fundamental fundamental existence, animating all the existences. However ignorant a person may be, we see the same God shining in all of them. That is the realization to which one reaches, a realization which one attains when one reaches the state of Mahayoga. This is the ideal highest of all yogas. Whatever other things you hear, Kurma Purana warns us, it may give us a good health, it may give us good prana, it may give us good intelligence, many good byproducts may be there in this yoga, in the other yoga, but they are not the real yoga. The real yoga is that where the yogi finds himself and the whole universe as God. So that's why when Swami Sarvasthananda once asked Thakur that please bless me so that I can see God in everything. I can see the Divine Mother in everything. I can see God, all-pervading God in man, in the heart of everybody. So Sri Ramakrishna told him, oh my God, that is the last word of spirituality. It is not so easy. First try to see the God within, and by His grace you will see the same God pervading everywhere. So that is a higher and much higher state. That's why it is given the word name Mahayoga. Now, this is the highest of yogas. Now, after saying this, it gives a list of things which we discussed in very brief. We have discussed all these things, so I'll just read out, or maybe I'll just mention what Kurma Purana says. Kurma Purana says there are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi are the 8 steps in Raj Yoga. Now this we have discussed, there is nothing new. So Yama, external behavior, Niyama, the internal control. Yama means controlling external nature. Niyama means controlling internal nature. Asana, that is physical exercises, or simply it means that posture which can make you steady for a long time. which can make you sit steadily for a long time, which does not make you physically restless. Mentally we are all restless, but to become physically restless is also in a gross way also. Restlessness does not conducive to yoga. So that's why asana is given first. Pratyahara, dharana, dhyana come later. Because if you are not physically stable, if one cannot physically and calmly sit in one place and focus on one thing for a long time, then there is no chance that he can be successful in yoga. He will not be successful in anything, leave alone yoga. So, yama, niyama, asana, that is steadiness, a steady posture, which helps to keep your mind steady. So a steady body results in a steady mind. Now pranayama, which is the regulating the flow of energy that is animating our body. That is in brief pranayama. All the different forces, the nervous force, the circulation, if there is a slight imbalance in any one of these forces, we fall ill, physically ill, mentally ill. So all our illness is nothing but a disturbing in the balance of prana and asana. Whenever asana and prana, whenever we are not in control of our body or the mind, or even the energy levels, they are just helter-skelter. I mean, they're not under our control. We just abuse our body and do not control our prana by regulating our life. Yama and niyama is just for regulating, for preparing oneself for asana and pranayama. Asana and pranayama are possible only if the strict rules of yama and niyama are followed. If we continue to abuse our body, if we continue to not to take care of our body, then the prana gets disturbed. Overeating or not eating at all, that's why moderation is prescribed. Too much of eating, lack of exercise. So there are so many factors which too much of exercise also may be bad. So we have to have a balance. The asana is meant for that. that which makes your posture steady and that which regulates the prana, the life forces in your body, make for a successful asana and a successful pranayama. So once we have done the 4 steps, yama, niyama, regulated life, regulated internal life, regulated external life, steady life, asana, and study the nerves and the energy levels which are there in the body. Once these 4 steps are successfully fulfilled or done, then we have the pratyahara, which we are doing all the time, trying to reserve our energies which we normally waste in all these stupid things, in unnecessary gossip, unnecessary going after things which really do not matter to us, which do not interest us, which should not interest us or should not be the subject of our attention. So there are so many things which we can do away with in our life, and if we do that, we can practice pratyahara satisfactorily. Pratyahara means withdrawing the mind. If there are more occupations and more things which involve our attention and create havoc in our life, then you can't expect to lead a quiet life. You can't withdraw your mind from those things. However much we tell, we can forgive certain people, but we cannot forget. Those people come in our mind again and again and again. They disturb us. So even if you are physically isolated, that doesn't mean that you are mentally isolated. You have to practice pratyahara to see that your organs and your mind don't go towards the object which is troubling you. You just have to learn. We have to learn. It's a hard thing to do, but we have to learn to not get involved in things which do not require our involvement. There are many things in life in which we are not supposed to get involved because it neither helps the person nor does it help us. If that is true, then we have to be very careful. Pratyahara is exactly teaching us to do that. It teaches us to just to be in simple words, in simple English, it is to mind our own business. Now it's a very crude term, but it's such an important thing that if we just focus on minding our own business, we will be saving a lot of energy for a higher achievement or higher evolution. That is the secret of all yoga. So, equanimity is yoga. Where does this equanimity come? Equanimity can come even in the battlefield. But a battlefield was necessary for Arjuna because he was minding his own business. His business was to protect the people. His business was to fight the battle. So that is not minding one's business. He was minding his business. He was not minding somebody else's business. The war was thrust on him. So we should not come to the conclusion that minding one's own business means withdrawing from everything. No, we do what needs to be done in the circumstances in which we are played according to the situation or according to the duties allotted to us by virtue of our swadharma. So we have to do that. But beyond that, everything else in which we get involved, which are not necessary or not supportive of our main profession or our main activity, which is karma yoga, that is nothing but adding more misery upon ourselves. So that is why we don't get the benefit of pratyahara when we have too many things to withdraw. If it is our own job which we have been doing, if we are only minding our business, then it is very easy. Once the business is over, once your job is over, once your duty is over, you can just withdraw and practice your spirituality. But because of our restless mind, we get attached to things which are not our business. Then minding others' business becomes a irritation. Not only to us, if it is just our problem, then it is okay. We don't understand that by not minding our business, we are creating problems for others. We just have to be very careful to understand this pratyahara. Without this pratyahara, all our efforts in dharana, dhyana and samadhi will be zero. We will be at step 1. Because without pratyahara, the Patanjali system is one of the best in training the mind. It gives you It starts with the fundamental yama, goes to niyama, then goes to asana, then pranayama, and after having done all that, and we have a well-controlled, well-regulated body, which many of us don't have, after that only we start pratyahara, and in pratyahara if we don't succeed, then we should forget that we can do dhyana, dharana and other things. We may be practicing some kind of meditation, but then we'll complain that we are doing dhyana, we are doing meditation, we are not able to sit, we are not getting the benefits of dhyana. The result is because there is some leakage, some pratyahara is wrong. Either pranayama is wrong, asana is wrong, yama and niyama are not being practiced. That is why Kurma Purana in this they says these are the steps. You can't jump the steps. You have to pass through all these steps gradually. Master, as you go on mastering, it becomes easy. The climbing of steps become easy. Not that you finish one step and then you just go up and down the steps regularly. Every day we have to climb these steps. Every day we have to practice yama. Every day you have to practice niyama. Every day you have to practice asana. Every day you have to try and practice pranayama in different ways, directly or indirectly. Then every day you have to practice some kind of self-control. That is, in simple words, as I said, just minding our own business. That is pratyahara. Minding our business. If we don't have any urgent work to attend to, then why can't we just focus on our self, on our reality? Why can't we practice Mahayoga once, twice, thrice, 4 times, as this Kurma Purana says? As many times as we practice, the benefit is ours. And there is no limit to this. We can do it 4 times. Suppose we have lot of spare time, then why can't we use it for practicing some kind of Mahayoga? That is the essence of this thing, is that if we start minding our own business, then we will suddenly find that we have lots and lots of time to practice this yoga. Then you can't complain, because nobody works for 24 hours every day. Even the busiest man, he legally is supposed to get at least 10 to 11 hours of spare time. And out of that, 4 to 6 hours is more than enough if his mind is okay, if he is not disturbed, then 4 to 6 hours of sleep is more than enough. So rest of the time is all for yoga, if we want it. So the problem is we think there is hardly any time because we are not minding our own business. That is the reason why pratyahara has been emphasized. Once we are established in pratyahara, not only pratyahara, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama and pratyahara, we come to the sixth step, that is dharana. And dharana enables us to focus on one thing to the exclusion of everything else. That is, focusing on the Ishta. When we decide to sit for meditation, our mind gets stuck to our Ishta. It does not wander here and there. We don't have to, because our pratyahara is ensured that our mind can focus on one thing now. Our main job, the other job is over, our business is over, our whatever we need to do by virtue of those things being our duty, once that is over, all we have to do is focus on the Ishta as much as possible and practice this Mahayoga as many times as possible. So that is a wonderful technique which Kurma Purana says that once, twice, thrice, depending on how much time is available and how much energy you have, how much of pratyahara you have practiced, depending on that you will be able to practice dharana, dhyana and finally, if you are lucky, samadhi, of which now again he is trying to explain Kurma Purana. The next verse says non-injury, truthfulness, non-covetousness, chastity, not receiving anything from other are called yama. Ahimsa, satya, aparigraha, chastity, purity, brahmacharya, and asteya, not robbing, not taking anything from others, not non-covetousness. And aparigraha means not accepting gifts which we really don't need or which will create some kind of bondage, some kind of obligation. So that is known as aparigraha. That is also a great virtue. These are yama. These are all yama. Non-injury, that is ahimsa. not injuring anybody by word, thought or deed, truthfulness in word, thought and deed, non-covetousness, not stealing or not dispossessing others of their rightful property or things or anything. Even mentally, if we steal somebody's ideas, that is also a kind of theft by not acknowledging and without the permission. So, chastity, which is brahmacharya, which is very important, as I said, to preserve the ojas or to brahmacharya is important for many reasons because it helps us to transmute the energy which is normally wasted as sexual energy into higher forms of energy which is known as ojas. And this is the ojas which is responsible for the rise of Kundalini. The Kundalini Shakti or the nerve current which during pranayama or during higher forms of yoga enables us to raise our minds or raise our personality to higher and higher levels is the power behind that is known as ojas. The more ojas one has, the more higher he can go in yoga. So that is why every religion insisted on some kind of chastity in life. So chastity, brahmacharya means purity of mind, thought, word and deed, everything. And not receiving anything for aparigraha, not accepting things so that you are not obliged. The only reason is when you accept things, you may be obliged to return it, and if you do that, then the aparigraha means not non-acceptance, parigraha means acceptance. So this acceptance comes with certain conditions and that disturbs your pratyahara. You have to understand the importance. It's not that by taking something which you really don't need binds you. It binds you in different ways. These things you feel, oh, I am obliged to that person. And then the mind goes there, constantly it goes there. That I have to repay that, I have to repay that, or I am obliged and all those things. And those create difficulties in practicing pratyahara. You simply can't mind your own business if you have accepted many things. So that is parigraha. These are called yama. These are the external controls which is the first step of yoga. 5 external controls: non-injury, truthfulness, non-covetousness, chastity, non-receiving anything from another are called yama. What this does is given in the next verse. This purifies the chitta. Chitta is the mind, never producing pain by thought, word and deed in any living being is what is called ahimsa or non-injury. Now it is further explained. There is no virtue higher than non-injury. This Kurma Purana verse was taken by Mahatma Gandhi, and he he made it his life's mission not to injure others. So his non-violence was a part of his ahimsa. Ahimsa is not just non-violence. It can be not producing pain by thought, word and deed, not just physical deed. By physically harming somebody or not harming somebody, you don't practice ahimsa. Real ahimsa is not producing pain, any kind of pain by thought, word and deed in any living being, not only human beings. This is the great virtue of ahimsa or non-injury. There is no virtue greater than non-injury. There is no happiness higher than what a man obtains by this attitude of non-offensiveness to all creation. That is, living in perfect harmony with nature is what gives us, because that is our nature, is part of ourself. So when you consider, when we are trying, when everybody is trying to see the divinity which is there within us, it automatically implies that the same divinity is within the other person also. So non-offensiveness to all creation automatically implies that we are considering our consciousness to be divided into so many different forms, and our relationship with them determines to a large extent how much I identify with my consciousness. If I hurt others, I hurt myself. That is the idea. So by truth, that is the first. So there is no happiness, means one gets the highest happiness by practicing this kind of oneness. That is ahimsa. The second is satya, truth. By truth we attain fruits of work. So if we are truthful, then whatever we do, we get the benefit. But if we do it half-heartedly, if we are not men of or men or women of integrity, if we don't do anything with the full integrity, if we don't really follow truth, then we will not get the full fruits of work. Anything which is done half-heartedly, not with the full truth behind it, does not yield the necessary results. So, this is what Satya does. In truth, everything is established. Through truth, everything is attained. So these are the two, ahimsa and satya. The first two, yama and niyama, the yamas, are so important that Mahatma Gandhi felt that these two virtues, let me first practice these two, then I can think of practicing the other ones. Of course, he tried to practice the other ones, but this impressed him very much, because if ahimsa is the greatest virtue and truth is also something by practicing which you can attain everything, if Kurma Purana says that, if our scripture says that, every scripture, every commandment in the world tells us this. So, in truth, everything else is established. Relating facts as they are, this is truth. Not then, this is the second one. Third is asteya, not stealing others' goods. Not taking others' goods by stealth or by force is called asteya, non-covetousness. That is the third virtue, yama. Chastity in thought, word and deed always and in all conditions is what is called brahmacharya. So this is a very essential virtue. Not receiving any present from anybody, even when one is suffering terribly, is what is called aparigraha. So aparigraha is a virtue which allows us to tolerate things and try to live with the bare minimum and not accept, even if it is the idea behind this is When a man receives a gift from another, his heart becomes impure, he becomes low, he loses his independence, he becomes bound and attached. So to prevent this kind of bondage, to prevent this kind of inability to practice pratyahara, which we can't do if we are minding so many others' businesses, if we are involving ourselves too much and accepting too many things, too many responsibilities, he becomes bound and attached. And that is what happens to us. We are bound by everything. Why was renunciation preached? Even in a household, a certain kind of detachment is necessary. If we are attached to our children, if we are attached to somebody who is constantly giving us trouble, that is what Swamiji said. Suppose the mother loves the child and the child is continuously giving it trouble, and still it cannot get rid of that detachment. That is known as Maya. So that is the one of the basic impediments in spiritual life, that we have to have a certain degree of detachment. Otherwise, if we don't practice this virtue, then we can't practice pratyahara. We have to practice detachment. For us, we have to understand that all the relations, all the gross connections are only incidental, they are not real. Our only eternal relationship is with God, who is the eternal spirit animating everybody, not only my son, my daughter, or my father or mother. Everybody has a gross connection, a biological connection. But more than that, the connection is deeper if it is a spiritual connection. So if we hold on to the spirit, that is why there is a famous verse in Vaishnava say, Tasmin tushta jagat tushta. If we make God happy, or the infinite spirit within us happy, it makes the other person automatically happy. We try to please others by pleasing them in the gross, and it never succeeds because that is the law of nature, that the grosser a thing, the more temporary it is, the more sadness it will give, the more painful it is, the grosser a thing is. So when we go and we enjoy subtle levels of existence, the happiness also increases in that proportion. So that is why aparigraha, he should not lose his independence and become bound and attached to silly things. Things which really do not deserve our attention. If it is not a part of our duty, having done our duty, now there was in this Mahabharata war, for example, you may say that after all they were his cousins, or after all maybe the father and son fought on different sides. They may be biological relations, but if it comes in the way of duty, then even killing was justified, as in the case of Mahabharata. So it really doesn't matter, because it is only in the spirit that we can help somebody else. If we have to really help a person, then it has to be the finer it is, the better the help is. So that's why all these things, independence, interdependence, how one becomes slow, this aparigraha is given so much importance that our heart has become impure by our attachment. By our attachment, our heart has become so much impure that we are incapable of understanding the higher realities of life. So to prevent that, aparigraha is advised. Aparigraha is considered to be one important quality without practicing which one cannot aspire to succeed in yoga. The following are the helps to succeed in yoga are called the niyama, or regular habits and observances. Tapas, austerity. The first one are internal control. The second one is external control. Tapas, swadhyaya. Tapas means austerity. Tapas means trying to endure, trying to bear whatever things are inflicted upon us patiently, with titiksha, bearing those things is tapas. Swadhyaya means studying good things, studying important things, studying things which give us a spiritual orientation in life, that is swadhyaya. Santosha, contentment, being content with whatever one gets, that is a great virtue according to Holy Mother. It's a very important virtue. It is so difficult because if we mind our own business, then we'll be content with whatever we do and whatever little we gain, whatever little we lose. We are happy with that as long as we stick to our own business. But if we involve ourselves in many things, then we'll never be content. We want this, we want that, we want to do this, we want to please everybody, which never happens. You can only please God. There is no way that you can please anybody, including our children or our parents. There is hardly any person. There's that wonderful parable of Sri Ramakrishna, where one disciple, it's a beautiful parable. One disciple once was told by his guru that all these biological relations which you have, they are not your own. None of them cares for you. He said, what rubbish you are talking. They are all so devoted to me. They love me so much. I can't take your word for it. Then the Guru said, okay, if you don't believe me, then I will demonstrate to you, I will show you how much they love you. Do you want to see that? He said, okay. So he said, okay, I'll give you a tablet, I'll give you some medicine which will make you, for all practical purposes, dead. When you return home and take that medicine, for a few hours you will lose consciousness, or you will appear to them as dead. All the heart will stop and the doctor also will announce, but only your hearing capacity will remain and you can hear everything and you can register everything. So you listen to what they say once the doctor declares you as dead. So this was what Sri Ramakrishna told in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna we find this story. So this parable, this wonderful parable, so the husband, the main owner of the family, he takes that medicine, listens to his guru, and the guru says, when the time is over, I'll come and then I will revive you. I know the mantra, I'll revive you. So till then you will be acting as if you are dead, and you will be really dead. So he goes, he takes the tablet, he lies down, and then the wife and the parents and the children, they all get upset, and then they call the doctor. Doctor says he has just died. And then they start weeping, wailing, and then all those things. So unfortunately he was very poor, and their door was very small. So then they decide to cremate him. They arrange everything, and then because he had died in a very peculiar position, his arms were stretched to the side. So the arms were not, um, they were not able to keep the arms straight. It was stretching, so it was impossible to take the body out of that small hut where the door was very small. So the only thing that could be done is to break the door. And he was lying in that position and hearing everything what was being said. Then the person, the doctor says, now we have to take the body. Then the wife says, no, you don't disturb my house. If we break, they says we have to break the door, otherwise we can't take the body outside. He said, no, we can cut off the arm. Anyway, he's dead. Let us cut off the arm. And then the doctor comes just when these discussions are going on. He comes and says, oh, there is a chance that he can survive. There is a chance that he can survive. I have some medicine. But because of the karma, somebody else has to die so that he can live. If you are so concerned, if you are all weeping and wailing that he was the bread earner of your family, breadwinner, and if he dies, what will happen? So, one of you, either the children or the wife or the old aged parents, if one of you take this medicine and one of you dies, then he will be revived. Because that karma has to be worked out. So you do. Now who is ready to give up his life? So first of all, the parents were approached. They said, no, how can we love our grandchildren so much. If we die, who will look after the grandchildren? We will somehow manage. We have enough savings. So the grandfather and grandmother said, no, we can't die. We have to live. For it's not for ourselves. We are old, no doubt, but for the children. Because if the wife goes for work or earn some money, then somebody has to look after the children. So our presence is very much necessary. So they refuse. Then the doctor says, okay, the doctor was actually the guru of that person. So the person was lying, was hearing everything. So he goes to the wife and said, see, if you die, at least your husband will live and he will earn some money and he can support your children. No, he says, my children are too small. They cannot live without the mother, so I have to live. It is. So also the children also said, no, we are young, they have already lived their lives. We are too young, we want to live. So nobody was ready to sacrifice their life. And finally they said, okay, if none of you agree to die for his sake, then he has to be cremated. Now you take him out. Then the wife said, wait, we'll have to cut the hands. Cut the hands of the husband who was so dear. Said we have to cut the hands because if you destroy my heart, then where will we stay? We don't have money to rebuild this house. So it's better that you cut the hands if necessary. And when the wife was saying this, then that person, suddenly the effect of the medicine went away and he suddenly got up and then he told the whole family, now I know how much you love me. You are not even, you are ready to even cut my hands. He scolded his wife. And I thought all of you had so much love and respect for me. Now I see that none of you care. Everybody is selfish. So this is what Santosha means. Santosha implies that whatever we have, that we should be happy. Otherwise, adding more and more dependencies, or maybe thinking that we are dependent on so many people, our happiness that our happiness is dependent on the happiness of so many other people, then we are going to make our life miserable. That is the main point which was conveyed here in this contentment. Why contentment is necessary? Then Shaucha, purity, Ishwar Pranidhana, that is worshipping God, or other things. Fasting or other ways in which we try to exercise some kind of self-control is also known as tapasya. Repeating the Vedas and the other mantras by which sattva material in the body is purified is called swadhyaya. The main purpose of reading or swadhyaya is to raise our mental level or raise the level of our personality to more and more subtler levels. So, by Swadhyaya, the Rajas, the element of Rajas and the Tamas, which is grossness, decreases and we become finer and finer, more capable of understanding the subtle spiritual truths. So that is why Swadhyaya is necessary. There are three sorts of repetition of these mantras. So, repetition of the mantras or study, these are all part of Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya doesn't just mean reading books or understanding scriptures. It also means repetition of mantras. And then Kurma Purana says there are three types of mantras. One is called verbal, other semi-verbal, and third mental. The verbal or the audible is the lowest and least effective, and the inaudible or the mental repetition is the highest. The repetition which is loud is verbal, the next one where only lips move but no sound is heard, and the inaudible repetition of the mantra accompanied with thinking of its meaning is called mental repetition and it is the highest. So, these are the different things. Next class we will discuss what Shaucha is. Purification of the body by water, earth or other materials is external purification as bathing, and the sages have said there is an internal purification of the mind by all other virtues is internal purification. So Shaucha, which is the third niyama, also means purification both external, physical and mental, or at all levels. Both are necessary. It is not sufficient that a man should be internally pure and externally dirty, When both are not attainable, the internal purity is much better than external. But to be a yogi, one has to have both. Worship of God by praise, by thought, or by devotion is known as swadhyaya, or it is known as yama, santosha, shaucha, ishvara pranidhana. Worship of ishvara pranidhana, that is worshipping God either by singing praises, stotras, japa, by thought or by devotion, just by having a feeling of reverence or feeling of devotion towards God is Ishvara Pranidhana. Now we have spoken of Yama and Niyama, then we come to Asana. We will discuss about the asana in the next class as Purna Kurma Purana has described it. So if there are some questions, you can just ask. Yes. Any questions? Or we can close for the day. As I said, there are two sessions tomorrow. One is at 5:45 or for 4:45, sorry, not 5:45. Again I am making that mistake. So 4:45 our standard time GMT, which is 10:15 in India. We'll have the regular Gita class, and at 11:35 I have a session. The timing may vary because the previous speakers speak. There is Swami Divyananji also from Sharda Peeth, who is the head of Sharda Peeth, and there are other speakers who will be speaking on the relevance of Gita for present day life. So this will be at 11:35. The link will be sent to you in a few minutes after this session is over. I will send you the link. Anybody can join. It is free. And but you have to log in and there is a password which you need to. It is a Zoom session, I believe. Anyway, whatever it is, the details will be sent to you soon. And the detailed timetable also will be there in a small PDF file. So you can see there are other speakers also. If you like, you can hear. It begins at 9:30 tomorrow, Indian time, or London time, 9:30 a.m. And it will be over at 6. And there are of course some other items, some songs also, I believe, I'm not sure. But my session is at 11:30, 11:35 for about 35 minutes. So shall I take your leave? If there are no questions, I'll take your leave. Oh, anything? Who is that?
Sharon and someone else.
You want to ask?
Well,
Yes.
it was more related to Holy Mother's Gospel.
Yes.
Why did they take the body? It says they took Thakur's mother to the gut to semi-immerse her. So
Oh, that
why
is,
is that
yeah. That is the ritual is known as Antarjali. Antar means, Jali means, Jal means water. So when very old people, it is a very rare thing. It doesn't happen to everybody. If by some great merit, a person comes to know that he is going to die. Normally it happens to very old people. They don't do it to young people. So people who are very old and who have a conviction that they don't have much to live now, lot of time to live. So when they're very weak, they somehow come to know that many of the Jain monks also do that. They just stop eating and then they know that I'm not going to live. So it's a kind of premonition. So old people normally, very old people who lived a little away from the Ganga, they had a desire that their body partially should be immersed in the Ganga when it is to when they are about to die or when they are about to leave their body. So that way they thought, they had faith, full faith, that they will get liberation, because Ganga water is supposed to be a very holy water, and the Ganga river itself is such a holy thing. So when they were very, very sick, according to their wishes, of course, they would be taken in a cot, because you can't put them on the floor or the banks of the river just like that. So they will be nicely kept on a cot, and normally they won't be immersed in water. They won't be so bad. The idea is that they would prefer to stay there very near the river, so that the Ganga Jal can be easily brought. You see, those days it was difficult, and then they say the legs of that person will be partially just touching the Ganga. The cot will be in an inclined position, and the feet perhaps will touch the Ganga, and they will chant the name of the Lord and then die. It's a very, very glorious thing, very rare thing. So Thakur's mother had the premonition, and she was taken, and Thakur uttered the name of the Lord when the body, because they could see the soul leaving the body. So that is a rare thing. It is not practiced anymore. It is known as Antarjali.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, yes,
Pranams.
yes. Namaste.
Nam.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Pranam, Maharaj.
Namaste.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
Pranam, Swamiji.